I wanted to become a pilot first, but then my eyesight wasn't good, and there was no LASIK at the time, and so I became an engineer instead, and basically did aerospace, studied airplanes, and had a friend who worked on satellites, and then just got introduced in satellites, and then eventually I liked it, and kept working more on satellites. And then after college, I got a job in a small town called Bremen, and it was about building a satellite um, together with a company called OHB. A small team. We were 6 people on the university side, and it was done by university basically. Um, and that was in '89-ish. And then the satellite flew actually on the shuttle in '93. And then by that time, I'd worked with people here in the US, and one of them asked me, "Hey, do you want to come over on an H-1B visa?"
Mhm.
That's a visa that's currently being gutted, I would say. Um, but yeah, without the H-1B visa, I wouldn't be here. So I came over here. First was 2 years. Started working for the company. They did some analysis work mostly, and I was pretty good at analysis and simulation actually. I My entire career I worked on a simulator basically for spacecraft, and I started working on that actually in Bremen. Actually, earlier, I think I started working in Berlin. And so by the time I was in the US, it was a really good tool.
Yeah.
Started working with that simulator basically. Um, they introduced me a little bit into rocketry. They worked on a sounding rocket.
Hmm.
First one engine, and then later on it had two engines. Wasn't flying great. I mean, it was flying, but it was more like a corkscrewing in the sky. And then I ran just accidentally into Elon Musk, um, and at an amateur rocket festival, and we just shook hands and talked a little bit. And then he must have come across my name later, two more times. Like two other people told me that they talked to Elon about me, and then he gave me a call and asked, "Hey, do you want to join this company? We're going to call it Space Exploration or SpaceX for short." And that was 2002. And so in May 2002, I joined SpaceX. I was the fourth employee at the time, other than Elon himself, Chris Thompson, and then Tom Mueller. And I was basically responsible for pretty much all of the rest that they didn't do at the time. Um, there were others that joined later, like Tim Buzzer was responsible for launch. Yeah, Tom Mueller was propulsion, Chris Thompson was structure. I was basically avionics, guidance and control, flight safety, software, um, and um, and yeah, and then we built Falcon 1, and it was pretty wild. Eventually it flew, and then we built Falcon 9, then we built Dragon. And then after 19, not quite 20 years, I decided to retire. And that's where I am now. So I actually retired pretty much 4 years ago. I'm still working. I work for like a bunch of companies now. I work for OHB. That's the original company I work with in Germany. I work for Astroforge. That's a small satellite supplier here in the South Bay. For Vast Space, which builds space station. And then I work for Stoke Space, which is a reusable rocket in Seattle.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
All right.
That's also.
So, so whenever you first started working for SpaceX, was there anything different about how working for kind of a small rocketry startup between is there anything different from working at that small rocketry startup versus like an established aerospace institution?
I don't know. I never really worked for established aerospace institutions, to be honest. I always worked like for small companies and startup teams. So I bet it's different. Absolutely. I mean, there's no process, and there's nothing. It's totally up to you how you want to do that, right? And
Yeah.
so over time, we introduce processes. We try to be sensible, right? We try to be reasonable and like I don't know how you handle equipment, how you handle flight hardware. how you treat hardware that failed. And all of that is like a thing that you later have to um, develop rules for, like hardware broken gets or on this shelf so it doesn't get accidentally mounted on the vehicle and stuff like that. And so that whole thing comes with maturity on the company, the rules, how you work. And so and when you start up, you basically don't have these. You kind of like making it up along the way, or you're trying to be reasonable and say, okay, this makes sense, we're going to do that. Um, yeah.
Okay. So from your perspective, are which technologies like propulsion or avionics are currently the most underinvested?
Um, so the thing is basically rockets are to more than half propulsion, I would say. So propulsion just rules the whole field. And propulsion is the one that costs the money. Avionics is, it's important, you need it. But at the end of the day, there's so many ways to do that. You can have like a bigger computer that's not fancy, or you can have a fancy small computer. And honestly, both can work. Yeah. So at the end, you want the most reliable computer and you want the least weight. Um, so that is all that makes sense. But the king in the building basically is propulsion. The queen is structures, I would say, and then the rest is how you put the whole system together and make it work.
Okay. So you've worked in the Americas obviously and in Europe. So what kind of structure or culture changes would Europe need to adopt in order to compete more directly with like aerospace in America?
Um, Yeah, it's very different actually. So it's not the people are actually well educated in Europe. I want to say they have like a really great, high school education. They have the colleges are great. There's no question they have awesome engineers. Yeah, but they do work less. I mean, there's like the overall work time is less typically. On average, I think that's true too. I mean, there's people that work super hard and everything, yeah. But on average, I think the time you work, like in Germany, the I think the weekly work time is like 36 or 37 hours, yeah.
Hmm.
Here it's 40 plus, the time that you actually really put in. Um,
Yeah.
and there's rules that are tighter in Germany in terms of like uh overall work time per week, or overtime rather. There's more vacation time, there's more holidays, and everything is more towards, they call it work-life balance. Now,
Yeah.
I don't really think I had like a deficiency in work-life balance, but my work-life balance is definitely way more towards work, and I guess I was really doing what is fun for me. So work and life kind of like intermingled a little bit more than usual.
Okay. So, as someone like you who has seen startups like SpaceX evolve into these major aerospace players, what are some leadership lessons that really stand out that you could give us from scaling these organizations from like level one to like 1,000?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I think we did very well, yeah, just to say that. But I actually don't really know what the really secret was. Yeah, I mean, obviously Elon can be very inspiring. When he talks about Mars and humanity, interplanetary humanity specifically, then this inspires a lot of people. So the mission is good. I mean, if you have a great mission, that's obviously something that gets people fired up and pulls them together.
Yeah.
Then communication is important, like inside the company, right? You have to say, okay, this month we got to deal with this problem, and this is absolute priority. Um, it's it has to the more transparent the communication is, the better. It doesn't always have to be positive. I mean, it doesn't always have to be, oh yeah, we're the greatest and best, yeah. It can actually be, if you don't make this, then the company is dead, yeah. I mean, it
Yeah.
can be as dire as that, but it's transparent. It's everybody understands it. Elon was pretty good at that. I guess um the lieutenants or the second chief shift, the vice presidents at SpaceX, communicated as well too. So I don't know. So let's see what else. You need money, you need funding, so that's important, and funding needs to scale, and then you need to build up the whole company in parallel as much as you can. So you need business development, you need to work on the product, you need to work on whatever human resources. It's a really, really difficult thing if you want to be successful with that.
Okay. So you now sit on like boards and you act as an advisor. So in your advisory roles, what criteria do you prioritize when you're deciding to kind of partner uh or invest in like a space or aerospace venture?
So I'm looking for urgency. I look at how how driven are they? Are they do they understand that they really have to focus in this phase? Because that's what you have to do. You have to really focus on the product and get this done. Um, and you see pretty quickly if the company doesn't have focus or if the company does something different. I walk around, I talk to people, and then I ask them, do you know when the first launch is? And then they know the date. And it doesn't have to be the real date. I mean, it's just like you set goals, right? And I want them to understand, do they understand the goals? Does everybody, understand what the company is doing? And so, yeah, I mean, there are ways to check on how focused the company is, and I usually do that. Yeah. Um, but I mean, I sometimes have um, communication with investors too. Um, the other thing I learned is I'm just I'm just I'm just basically honest and upfront with problems, right? If there's problems, I say, this is going to be the problem. They need to work on that, and here's what I envision, how long that takes, and so on and so forth. So I'm not trying to paint a picture that's different from reality.
Okay, so over the next decade, which mission types like or markets like orbital transport or Earth observation or even like space logistics, like which one of those do you find the most compelling to like focus on?
Yeah. Let's start with Earth observation. I mean, Earth observation is useful and definitely great. More science there is a good thing. I guess maybe I do think we have enough data to undeniably make sure that climate change, um, is measured correctly. Yeah. Um, Maybe we need more data on top of that. But honestly, I think that's like a continuous thing that's going on. Probably better sensors would be great. Other needs communication shifting right now. It's shifting from a geostationary broadcast satellite into a more individual uh, internet type communication. Yeah. The satellite changes from like a big 10-ton heavy satellite in geo orbit to hundreds of small satellites in LEO orbit, because you want um, everybody gets the individual link basically, yeah. So it's a
Yeah.
different thing. What else? Communication is the still the killer app in my opinion. It's still the one that every human on this planet would need. Space travel or tourism will be rising. I'm pretty sure it will be growing over the next years, but it's also expensive. The costs need to come down, so we'll see how that will pan out and how much growth is in there. Um, did I forget anything? I mean, um, there will be also like surveillance, like as part of Earth observation. That's
Yeah.
part of it too, right? Um, yeah, I think I covered. And my main thing is basically the true commercial applications, and my understanding, communication and space travel basically. And then I know, obviously, right, exactly. We will have space stations. Space station for me is like a precursor of a bigger spaceship. Um, even with the International Space Station being I mean, like shut down at one point, there will be private space
Yeah.
stations. There will always be a need for that. There will be experiments in microgravity, on humans itself. I mean, in terms of like your health observation, um, animals. I mean, everything. Microgravity is still something. Microgravity and radiation are still two things that we are very actively working on. On top
Yeah.
of that, there's experiments that we can do there, that microgravity, that we can't do on Earth, and so that's clearly a valuable thing, but it's not really commercial. Yeah? There's a little bit of a niche there, which might be growing too, which is production in microgravity. Pharmaceuticals, certain cell types grow better in microgravity. Um, what else? There's some other products that benefit from being produced in microgravity. Crystal growth and stuff like that is better there. So there's definitely like other applications that are useful in microgravity. In the end, there might be additional ones that we don't think of right now, but
Yeah, okay. So if you were starting a new aerospace or space company today, what would your first like objective or kind of model be? Like, could you walk me through how you would approach that?
so I mean, it's a lot depends on actually what your own personal preferences, right? What you if you are you somebody like I was always like in attitude control, guidance and control,
Yeah.
simulations, and so naturally for me, I would think this is the thing that I can be good at, and so I will do a business there. That's not always how it works. As actually, it's probably more useful if you look at things and go, well, this is missing. I'm going to work myself into that and then work on that. And certain examples are, for example, somewhat mining related, like using regolith on the moon to mine, for example, oxygen, try to find water in a way that you can actually use it or mine it rather. Yeah. And so there's plenty stuff that is useful for future space exploration. Um, if I could think of it, I would probably be in that business already. So there's an incredible amount of people that works on nuclear energy right now, for example. Yeah, small reactors that could go on the moon, or in the future, nuclear propulsion might be a thing. So there's no limit.
Okay. So, okay, looking back, is there any advice that you'd give your younger self just as you were stepping into SpaceX?
I would probably be a little bit more braver than I was actually. I was slow. I mean, when SpaceX started, I was 39, so relatively late. I
Yeah.
would have started something earlier if I would have been more focused. But did I do anything? I don't think I would do anything different, to be honest. I mean, you start out the way you start out, right? And your environment determines a lot on what you're interested in and what your preferences are. Your parents are super important, obviously, in what you learn early on, and how you feel about going to college. I still think college is a great way to to educate and to challenge you and to actually become a problem solver. It's more problem solving or learning to learn than actually what you learn. That's important too, obviously, but being able to solve problems that are difficult is just that's the key thing.
Yeah, okay. So, do you have a message that you would like to give to this younger generation of people?
Yeah, I typically tell people they should really go. They shouldn't go by the market. Yeah. So like they should go actually by their talent, what they like to do, and what really challenges them and what gets them excited. So um, let me give you an example. If somebody goes, "Oh, I became whatever a realtor because that's where the money is," or something, yeah, that would be a waste of talent, in my opinion, if that person has otherwise an interest in nuclear physics or
Hmm.
in particle physics or something like that. Yeah, and I really wouldn't go after the money. Is my main message. Yeah, obviously you should get a job that can feed you and your family, but most jobs actually do that. But if you do something that you're good at, you're going to be happier, and you might actually be more successful than otherwise.